Hello again and welcome back to the Seed Compost Experiment 2026. Now forget the Winter Olympics, these are the competition results that you've really been waiting for, right? I did actually get a lot of comments in my last video and I'm really grateful for all of your feedback. It's been really interesting to hear your experiences of using different compost too. So I sowed these seeds over 2 weeks ago and I have been incredibly nerdy, and I do mean incredibly nerdy, and I've come up with this table to compare the results of all the different composts, and I can clearly see that there are some winners and some that are not doing quite so well that I'm going to talk you through right now. So first up, let me show you one of my favourite summer vegetables, which are my broad beans. Now, as expected, they have germinated really well. There's just a few that maybe are in the less successful compost mixes that are taking a little bit longer to germinate. Okay then, so as a reminder, the blue are the seed compost mixes and the purple are the multi-purpose. I've turned them around so I can read them as I'm talking to you. So the one here on the left is the Koya. So we've got full germination of the broad beans there. The Westland John Innes, again, we've got full germination, and look, they're looking really strong and healthy. They're going very strongly there. And there's a notable difference actually in terms of the broad beans sown in this next to the Koya even. And then the Rocket Grow. I've counted it as 2 because there is slight signs of life here, but yeah, it's lagging behind a bit. And then moving on, we've got the Miracle Grow. Again, we've got 2 that have germinated in here. There's one there just right at the front, if you can see that. The Melcourt Silver Grow, yeah, all 3 have germinated. And the Dalefoot, we've got 2. So of the broad beans, I think it's very clear that the Westland John Innes has done by far the best, and the Melcourt Silver Grow is in second place. If you didn't have a chance yet to watch the initial video where I talk about the experiment this year, you know, why I'm doing it and the different compost mixes that I'm going to be using, I do recommend that you check that out. I'll put a link in the description and also up here somewhere so you can click on that. So I'm really fascinated here by the results shown for the broad beans, because obviously they're such a big, strong seed and you kind of don't really expect them to be affected that much. But I think you can actually clearly see that there are some composts that they like and some composts that they don't like quite so much. And, you know, I'll keep an eye on this over, you know, the next few weeks to see if the ones that are behind actually do catch up, or if they continue to look maybe slightly less healthy than the ones that have got off to the better start. Now, before we get on to my Mizuna, I do have a confession to make. I clearly haven't provided them with the right growing conditions because they've gone very leggy. I think they weren't getting enough light up here in this upstairs office. So I've been taking them outside since then and hopefully they will recover. But nevertheless, I'm going to show them to you because you can still see that there's some differences in the number of seeds that have germinated. Okay, so let me show you then my Mizuna. Now, I'm really embarrassed to put my Mizuna on YouTube because they've gone so straggly and they're such a mess. But they're in this front row here. They have all germinated incredibly well, and so the composts are doing their job. It's my fault as a gardener that I didn't provide the right light conditions to them. If you remember when I started this experiment, I decided to sow 10 seeds in each module, and that was a really smart choice because it was very easy for me to remember. Now the Dalefoot over here has done fantastically well, and actually 10 of the seeds have germinated. And then I think that was followed up then by the Westland John Innes, where there's 8, and the Melcourt Silver Grow with 7. And the one that's done least well of all of them is the Rocket Grow, where I've only got 5 seeds germinated. Moving on then to the spring onions, which are in the middle here. Now, one of the things that is immediately obvious to me, I don't know if it comes across in the video or not, but is that the spring onions that have been sown in the seed compost are doing a lot better than the ones that have been sown in the multi-purpose. And yeah, the numbers also do back that up. So in the Westland John Innes, I've had 10, so all of the seeds that I planted have germinated. And that compares, you know, quite significantly to, say, the Miracle Grow, where only 2 of the seeds have germinated. So it does seem like if you are growing spring onions, it really would be a really good idea to consider using a seed compost. Even the seed compost that has performed the worst has actually got more seeds trying to germinate in it than, say, the Miracle Grow or the Melcourt silver grow over here. So I do think, yeah, if you're trying to grow spring onions or something like that, do have a think about maybe using some seed compost for that. Now, the perennial onions seem to be, as you probably expect, a little bit more resilient and a bit less fussed by the compost mix. So, but nevertheless, there's still differences. So the Koya and the Westland John Innes there, they've got full germination, complete germination, 10 out of 10 for both of them. As has the Dalefoot. There's 10 that have actually germinated in here, although you can also see clearly these ones here are nowhere near the height of the ones in the seed compost. So the seeds are clearly preferring the seed compost. And yeah, the Rocket Grow, the Miracle Grow, again, they're both struggling a bit. The Silver Court has done really well, but fewer germinations than, say, the Western John Innes or the Koya Bricks. Now, if you're enjoying this content, do remember to subscribe to the channel so you can keep updated with the experiment and you don't miss out on any of the updates. So what then can we conclude from all of these shenanigans? Well, the first thing is clearly that I'm a massive nerd, just in case that was in doubt. But more importantly, yeah, the type of compost mix that you use really does impact the germination rates. And I think the tendency is for us as gardeners to assume if we get bad germination that it was a dud seed packet. But that's not necessarily the case, because obviously all of the seeds here were sown from the same seed packet, and we've got some really big differences between them. Now, the main question I wanted to answer with this experiment was, does it actually make sense to spend a little bit of extra cash on a specialist seed compost, or can a multi-purpose compost do the job just as well? And the answer to that is, it depends. It can absolutely make sense to spend a bit more money on a seed compost, but you need to make sure that you get the right one. So if I take you through the 3 seed composts that we're using, the Westland John Innes, 28 out of a possible 30 seeds germinated. So I mean, that's almost 100% germination, and that is fantastic. And likewise, the Mr. Fothergill's, the Koya Bricks, which have also in them the seaweed, 26 out of a possible 30 seeds germinated. But then let's talk about the Rocket Grow. Oh dear. I used the Rocket Grow in the experiment last year and it did really very badly. And this again is a specialist seed mix. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to include it in the experiment this year. You know, the bag has got a sign on it saying it's a new improved blend. I thought maybe they fixed it and it's going to do better this year. No, so a total of 19 seeds out of a possible 30 germinated. And actually, of all the 6 composts that I have, that puts it in 5th place. There's only one that did worse, and that's a multi-purpose compost that's significantly cheaper. So yeah, the Rocket Grow still has work to do. It's still not living up to its name. It's interesting because I think the lady from Seedling Success UK, I hope I got that name right, she mentioned that all of their other mixes are really fantastic. She's had the same experience as me, but she finds like they're multi-purpose and everything really good. And you know what? I almost want to do an experiment where I actually come and compare their seed compost versus their multi-purpose compost, because I really do wonder if my seeds would germinate better in their multi-purpose compost. There's something going a little bit wrong there. Now, I'd love to hear from you in the comments section if you've had any experiences where you've seen, your seeds maybe not do quite so well and you thought maybe it was to do with the compost, or if you have a favourite brand that you always use because you know it's always going to give you results. So do let me know in the comments. One of the things I thought it might be a good idea to talk about in this video is what exactly is John Innes, especially given that Westland John Innes is the current frontrunner. Well, it's interesting, and you know what, I really love doing this channel because it actually forces me to go away and look into things and do some research and not be lazy. So I've done a little bit of digging and I want to share that with you. Previously, all I've really known about John Innes is that, it's on a lot of bags of compost that you see in the garden centre. And, when you watch TV and you have the gardening experts, they're always making these magical, soil mixes that contain John Innes. And all I've really known is that, yeah, it's got a good reputation and I'm meant to be impressed by it. And that's it. So the first thing to say is that John Innes was an actual person. He's not friends with Mr. Kipling or Aunt Bessie. He did actually exist. But he isn't the person who came up with these specialist mixes. No, they're actually named after him because they were created by two individuals who worked at an institute founded in his name. There are 3 different mixes and they depend on where the plant is in the growing stage. So I think the first one is for seeds and, well, you can imagine as you go through. But what is it about John Innes that makes it special and means that its name is still known today, despite the fact that I think it was invented back in the 1930s? Well, what they did was they decided to include garden soil in the mix. And that was actually revolutionary. Up to that point, the mixes were made from peat. And I guess they were probably adding in something in there to aid drainage. So John Innes is made of 3 main components: peat or a peat-free substitute, garden soil, so loam, the best soil that you can have, and thirdly, sand, which is interesting because if you remember when I was potting up the seeds, I did actually make a comment about how the Westland John Innes felt sandy. And yeah, I was onto something there. I wasn't imagining it. Now, the reason for adding the garden soil, so the loam, into the mix is kind of counterintuitive actually. It was actually to lower the nutrient value in the soil. Yes, so apparently seedlings are a little bit like Goldilocks. Of course they need nutrients, but they don't want too many or too few. They need exactly the right amount in order to thrive. And by adding in the garden soil, it actually reduces it a little bit and it makes a better environment for the seedlings. And apparently, if the soil has too many nutrients, which I guess is the case with like purely peat-based composts, what happens is that the seedlings, when they start to grow, the leaves can get like curled, brown, crispy, and it's called scorched seedlings. And what that actually is a sign of is that it's had too many nutrients too soon, and the plant is actually struggling to cope with it. Yeah, so I think that's absolutely fascinating. I'm so pleased I went away and looked into it because I've learned something now about seedlings and what they actually need to thrive and become good, strong, healthy plants. And when I reflect on it, it does make total sense that, a really young plant, sometimes less is more and too much could completely overwhelm the plant. But I'd never really thought about it like that. So one of the things that I absolutely love about gardening is it doesn't matter how many years I've been doing it, there's always something new to learn and explore. And yeah, I think that story about John Innes and the seedlings is absolutely fascinating and I wanted to share it with you. And if I move on to the multi-purpose compost, again, it does make a big difference which one you pick if you are going to pick a multi-purpose compost. Now the Dale foot that I had is the one that's doing the best at the moment, and that has 27 out of 30 seeds that germinated. So that did really well. But again, it's a specialist mix for vegetables and salads, and it isn't particularly cheap at all. The Melcourt Silver Grow, 22 out of 30 seeds germinated. So that's pretty good. The worst one, in fact, the worst performer so far of all of the 6 is the Miracle Grow with only 17 out of 30 seeds. The thing is, if you're a gardener and you are sowing all of your seeds in this Miracle Grow, then you might get to the end of the year and be like, I'm not a very good gardener. I might as well just give up. But it could be the compost mix. So I do think it is really worth considering and just trying different brands, because if you do get bad germination, it's not necessarily the seeds, it's not necessarily you, it could be the compost mix. Now this experiment isn't over. Oh no, we're just getting going, people. No, so in March, I'm going to be sowing one of my tomato varieties in the 6 different mixes. And then there'll be another plant that I sow. It could be that I'm keeping it secret for a reason, or maybe I didn't figure it out yet. Who knows? But yeah, we'll get there. And then I'm thinking, by the time I've done that, that means that I will have sown 6 different seeds in 6 different compost mixes. And the different seeds that I'm sowing, there'll be large seeds like the broad beans, we've got the onions. So we're doing lots of different seed types that maybe prefer slightly different conditions. And, plants like tomatoes that we know need to get off to a really good, strong start. And then I'll be able to compare across all of them. And I think by the time I've done all of those 6 seeds, there are going to be some very clear trends that can be seen. Yes, so that's the plan. The seed compost experiment continues. Obviously, we're right at the beginning of the season and there's still so many seeds to be sown. And I really do hope that my experiment can get some answers for all of us so we can make the right compost choices. And I really can't wait to get sowing those tomato seeds next month. So yeah, do keep watching and until next time, thank you so much.